Well, how'd we do with 6-4 there, Larry? Not too bad? Okay. That means nothing to me, but Larry was explaining to Penny and all I know is 6 minus 4 equals 2, so I don't know anything about the rest of that music stuff. But I'm sure glad we got people that do. That was beautiful, Penny. Thank you. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to take me home. Revelation chapter 13. As we look again at the beast from the sea, the next time we're together, we'll look at the beast from the earth. And we'll head back to Daniel in just a moment, but I want to read these verses again in Revelation. And if you have some translations will have 13:1 a little different. They will have he stood on the sand of the sea instead of I. Some folks, according to the Masoretic text, says he, and they believe it's talking about Satan instead of Christ standing there. So anyhow, then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. On his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. That beast there, that could be translated monster. That's the kind of guy that this is. It's the Antichrist. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. So we see the Antichrist is energized by who? By Satan. And if you know Daniel at all, you'll see that those images of a leopard and a lion and a bear came from his vision there. I'm sorry, I should have probably done a little more background on the book of Daniel, but we'll pick that up here in just a moment. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded. That's the little horn of Daniel. And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshiped the dragon. You see, the beast died and resurrected, the Antichrist, again, copying what Christ did. But guess who gets the worship? It's the devil. The devil's behind all this. And so they worship the dragon, Satan, who gave authority to the beast. And they worship the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And he was given a mouth speaking great things, blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Last half of the tribulation period, 3.5 years. 1,270 days, whatever there. And then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation, and all who dwell on the earth. And when you see that in the Revelation, it says those who dwell on the earth, it's talking about unbelievers, the unsaved. And this is their life, this is their place, the unbelievers there. Excuse me. And it says, all those who dwell on the earth will worship him whose names have not been written in the book of life. So you see the difference between Christians and non-Christians. The Christians are going to worship, the non-Christians are going to worship the beast. But the Christians will not. Of course, remember, during this time period, if you don't take the mark of the beast, you can't eat. You can't work. You can't do those things. And, of course, we'll look at that mark here before long. And then it says, if anyone has an ear, let him hear. You got to put your spiritual ears on. You got to do a little spiritual research when you're looking in the book of Revelation, because it has a lot of allusions to Old Testament prophecies in Zechariah, Isaiah, and then, of course, in Daniel, lots of things. So you got to put your ears on. But as I shared last time, it's interesting to see the difference between, it says here, is different what it says in the churches in chapters 3 and 4. It says, he who has ears, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So I believe, as I have held all along in this book, that we're raptured out of here. We are not here when this is taking place, but he's telling the folks that they need to have an ear and to listen. There will be lots of folks saved during this time period and a lot of martyrs, as we've looked at. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. And that's a verse that really is always hard for me to understand. But you know what? God has ordained that some people will go through some terrible times during the tribulation period. God has ordained that some of them will what? Be killed. Some of them will make it through. You know what? I think it might be better if you were killed. Because what they're going to go through is not easy, but God says, just be patient. I'm there with you. This program is about to end. It's about to end. We got 3.5 years, and this is going to be over. And so that's what it's there. Now, back to Daniel chapter 7 for just a moment. As we look at this person, the Antichrist, I'm going to quickly paint you a little more picture of him today, and then we'll go back to Revelation there. We looked at last time there'd be a charismatic leader. It says in Daniel 7, 7 and 8, if you have it there, it says, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. Now, if you would look at the vision of the other three beasts, you'll see where the leopard, the bear, and the lion came in, all representing different countries. The leopard represented Greece and Alexander the Great. And then we got the Medo-Persia Empire represented by the bear. And then we see that kingdom splits and Persia becomes a strong one. And then you get, excuse me, I gotta get my beast all right here so I don't forget you one. Here I'm looking up at my, the lion, I'm sorry. And the lion had eagle's wings, and that was Babylon. And so anyhow, we got those beasts taking place there in Babylon. And like I said, I wish I had taken time to go over that a little bit more with you. But in this fourth beast, he says, then I looked, and there was another, after all this, I saw a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. And if you want to know who is known for the kingdom with iron and teeth and being so strong, it's the nation of Rome. Rome took over, and they were known for their weapons and their iron. And this fourth beast is going to come up from that group, and it says it had huge iron teeth that was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts there was before, and it had 10 horns. 10 kings. Verse 24 tells us that it's 10 kings it's talking about. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up from among them, before whom 3 of the first horns, 3 of the first kings, were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. And that eyes like the eyes of a man, and man, it's talking about he was a man who had great speaking ability. That's what we were looking at last week. He's a charismatic leader. He has a charismatic nature. He's very persuasive. He'd make a good used car salesman. He can really talk you into about it. And he had great eloquence. And I gave some examples last week, like John F. Kennedy had that ability to really be eloquent and speak to, and Martin Luther King. And of course, one of the most well-known was Adolf Hitler, who could speak to thousands and get them to do things that were amazing. He speaks great things. Also, it says there that in verse 20 of that chapter, that his appearance was greater than his fellows. And so he's going to be a man who looks very distinguished. He speaks well. People are going to be drawn to his personality, to his looks, to his message. They're going to really like him. And And that's what he's going to come at a time when the world's falling apart, which you're already seeing, folks. The world is falling apart. Even look at the coronavirus. Maybe this is part of God's working toward this whole thing. No one really has an answer. This guy will. And as we go on to the next part, he's very clever. It says he has eyes like the eyes of a man, means he has high human intelligence. Otherwise, he's a genius. He has ways to solve problems that no one else has come up with. And he's going to come in during the dark time. Remember, the world's being shook by things by the Lord. Then also natural catastrophes. We got war, we got famine, we got disease running rampant. I just think it's amazing that all of a sudden this coronavirus just pops on the scene and people are affected everywhere. And now, Ron was telling us this morning they're burning the bodies over there in China and they can see the smoke all the way to Japan. That's how many people are dying from this thing over there. Over 2,000 people have died and, 100,000 infected. So this is all taking place and the world's going, hey, we need someone to help us out here. This guy walks up and says, hey, I'm just your man. And he's been in the system, though, as we'll see. And he's a very clever man, though. He's a diplomatic genius. And it tells us there in those verses we read that 3 of the kings are plucked out by the roots. And he's going to use the diplomatic system to get rid of some people so that he steps on the stage and guess who's in charge? He is. And remember who's energizing him now? He's got Satan energizing him and he uses whatever means he has and he slips in under the guise of peace. You understand that? He has set a peace covenant up. But we know, according to scriptures, at the middle of the tribulation period, that he's going to set himself up as God. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4. He's going to set himself up as God and demand that all people worship him as what? As God. This guy hates anything God, and we see that. He is a cultic leader. He wants everyone to worship him. Daniel 7:25 says this. Let me get here to 7:25. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High. He's going to try to obliterate anything in reference to God. He doesn't want anybody to think about anybody but him. Remember, as we looked in Isaiah, he says, I will exalt myself. I will. He shall persecute the saints of the Most High. And there in Revelation chapter 13 and 5 and following, 3 times it says God grants him that privilege. Now remember, Satan, the Antichrist, and the false prophet are still under God's control. God still has them on a leash. And he's going to let them, though, persecute the saints. And I'm going to say that they're going to emphasize here the destruction of Israel. Movement's already started, folks. Watch your news. Israel is hated by so many groups. Always blows my mind. But that's the way it is. And he shall intend to change times and laws. He will look to change holidays. Won't be no Easter, folks. No Easter. You don't want that. He's going to try to change the laws and the dates. From my understanding, when we go into the tribulation period, we're going to set up a new temple, and the Jews are going to worship according to those feasts that they did in the Old Testament. And so he's going to change all those times. He's going to change the dates. Many believe that he'll even change the length of days. That's not new. Do you understand? Did you know that France did that? France did that during the war. They changed the week to a 10-day work week. Kind of weird. It didn't work out. But who organized the 7 days? The Lord did. And what was that 7th day? It was, so he's going to try to wipe that all out. He's going to try to wipe that all out. because he wants worship to come his way, and he'll set up new holidays and new ways. And we already saw that even when the two witnesses are killed. We see a satanic Christian holiday. I was reading something online this week where there was a pro-life movement, and they had a bunch of pro-choice people, and the ladies were there chanting, "Hail Satan, hail Satan." See, it's happening. It's all tunneling that way. And so we're watching it unfold right before our eyes. It's kind of exciting because I think the rapture is about ready to happen. So you better be ready. Right, Ron? If you don't believe me, just talk to Rapture Ron there, and he'll get you straight. And he's going to be a cruel leader. We see there again, he's going to persecute the saints. It tells us in Zechariah that he's going to try to destroy Israel, and God will intervene there. But he is going to be a cruel man. And he is going to be like the many cruel leaders we've had throughout history. He's the culmination. He's going to be like the leopard. He's going to be like the lion. He's going to be like the bear. He's going to be the cruelest, meanest, cleverest dictator that's ever existed. Wow. It says in Revelation 13 that he's going to kill a third of the people. He's going to conquer the city of Jerusalem, Zechariah 14. He's going to slaughter a myriad of Gentiles, Revelation 13. He's going to persecute the saints of the Most High. Those folks that are going to be saved, they're going to be right in his crosshairs during this time. The Jews and the saints. They're going to be in his crosshairs. Just as Jesus Christ, as we move on in your outline to profile the Antichrist, and we'll get back to Revelation here, chapter 13 again from Daniel. There's a lot of stuff in Daniel we don't have time to cover today, and we'll hit some more as we're going through. But in there we see that he actually, as Jesus Christ was God in the flesh, y'all understand that, right? The Antichrist will be Satan in the flesh. When he is removed from heaven, Satan comes down and indwells the Antichrist. And then his wrath is poured out upon anything that is Christian, anything that is godly. Revelation 13 says, I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea. This guy's going to come up just as a normal person. He's going to work his way up through the ranks. I believe that he'll be part of that last 10-nation confederation. As we see the toes in Daniel, as the 10 toes represent a revived Rome. We'll see the power shift from here over to, see all right? Okay. I just want to make sure that if we're needed here. Those 10 toes, out will come one of those toes, which are kings and leaders. Out of those will come a little horn who becomes a big horn, and he will rise to power. So could he be out there today? Yes, he could, working his way up through the ranks. And he's going to displace those kings, and he's going to become the leader. And some folks really believe that he's Jewish. I don't believe that he'll be Jewish. I believe that he'll be a Gentile. Now, I believe the next guy we look at, the false prophet, will be Jewish. But we'll look at that also. But this one, I believe, will be a Gentile. And he's going to be the beast that comes out of the sea, out of the people that are here upon this earth, 8 billion at this time. And then it tells us there that he will have the feet of a bear. He's like a leopard, a bear, and a lion. And again, I've already alluded to that he will have those characteristics of those kingdoms. He will be quite a military genius also. He's going to have all the militaries of the world that he can use, and he's going to come down and attack a little bitty country that's about this little on the map, Israel. His goal is to destroy them, and he'll do that. And you can read about those in Daniel also and in Zechariah and different places. His bearing is intimidating. He is going to be like those. The Antichrist will be like the embodiment of every great pagan ruler in history. The most powerful, the most charismatic, the most diabolical. And we go on, we see his goal. He imitates Christ. He's going to die. He's going to be wounded, mortally wounded. There, verse 3. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally what? Wounded. He dies. And then he comes back to life. You just think if one of the world leaders right now died and came back to life, people would fall down all over the place. You know, with social media, we see everything. It isn't like back in the Bible times where just a few people got to see some of this. The whole world could see this man killed and be resurrected. And people are going to fall down and worship him. That's what it says. So they worship the dragon who gave authority to the beast. And then in verse 5, it says he was given a mouth. God has given the ability to blaspheme God. I don't understand everything, folks, but that's what it says. God's going to give him this ability to blaspheme, to encourage people to blaspheme. But you know, that's really not a whole lot different. It doesn't take you to go very far and you hear God's name blasphemed today. Shirley and I told you to come out of the restaurant the other day and here's some guy using the Lord's name in vain. Just walked out there, having a little old get together, smoking some cigarettes so they could go back in the bar. And they're using the Lord's name. This guy's going to do it, and he's going to do it publicly, and he's going to do it pridefully, and he's going to intimidate people, and he's looking to find worshipers. Really, it's my way or the highway with him. You either like him. It's kind of like Putin in Russia, but it's going to be worse. You know, if you're going to stand up and talk against Putin, you better have some bodyguards that are a quick way out of there because they'll drag you out of the river somewhere. That's the way communism works, you understand. Putin is the man. And what he says goes. And that's the way it is with the communism. That's the way it'll be with this Antichrist. And remember, if you don't take the mark of the beast, you won't be able to survive. Goes on, it says, then he opened his mouth to blaspheme against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him. Again, you see there the privilege comes from God. God still has him on a leash to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given in every other tribe, nation, or tongue. He's going to work at, from what I understand of studying Daniel and here in Revelation, he's going to wear the saints down. He's going to stop them from being involved in commerce. Same thing that Hitler did to Poland. He wouldn't allow them to be involved in commerce. And he persecuted the Jewish folks. And then every once in a while, he would grab someone off the street and execute them right in the middle of the street. Folks were always worried, uh-oh, am I next? Wearing them down, wearing them down. We have people in hiding, people trying to figure out a way to eat. All this is going on. People are sick. They got no way to get to medication. Although Satan says, well, you know, if you come and see me, I'll heal you. But remember, physical healing only lasts so long. It's the spiritual healing we have to, and that's what's going on during this time. And so every tribe, every nation is under fear of this man who was dead and now raised again from there, and they're following him. And it's terrifying, dark days, and they're thinking that he has the answers. Now there's still folks out there preaching the gospel. We got 144,000. We got those being saved that are preaching the gospel. But he's going to get a message out to the world that he's God, and that if you fall down and worship him, that he is the answer and he has the way. And really, he does have a way, but it's to a lifetime in hell instead of a lifetime in heaven, right? And there's lots of things about this great world leader, and we're watching it take place in our days, and that's why we need to keep our eyes open. And I'm going to tell you, folks, just because the guy is charismatic, just because he's good looking, doesn't mean that he's the man for you. Understand that? I want to remind you, primary elections on Tuesday. Be smart when you vote. Don't just vote. If you're going to, don't not vote. Just because the guy says, hey, I'm this and I'm that, be careful. Check out his record. Check out who you're voting for. And you know how it is when you're picking a pastor too. How many churches that pick pastors because the man's very charismatic. He's very good looking. And when they get him, after they get him, they're saying, why do we pick that guy? Just like the nation of Israel did. Remember when they picked Saul? Whoa, he looks like a king. And that mindset had so infiltrated people that when Samuel went to look at David's family, he saw the first one. He says, yep, that's him. And remember, the Lord took him through 7 and got number 8. You know, this scrawny old redhead out there taking care of the sheep. And the Lord said, that's my man right there. But the thinking was, well, I see this guy, I hear this guy, he must be the one. Be careful. Get your ears on. Listen to what the Spirit says. Listen to what the Word says, because the Spirit will always direct you to His Word. When you're selecting a leader of any kind in the church, as we'll be looking at next week in Timothy, church leaders are God-raised, man-recognized. You can't make a church leader. You understand that? You can't make a teacher. That's a gift that God gives people. You can't make a good this or good that. And then always remember when you're voting that God takes up one and He takes down another, right? God's in the business of there. But I want to be on God's team. I want to vote according to God's will and God's ways. But it's still God who lifts them up and takes them down. And you remember the story of Nebuchadnezzar, who thought that he was pretty important. And he lifted himself up, and God humbled him, and he is out eating grass with the cows. Hair growing long, fingernails like, wow, just amazing. Until one day he finally looked up and said, oh yeah, you're God. I'm not. Right? Same thing will happen to Satan. Same thing will happen to Satan. One day when he stands in front of God, God will say, this is it. And you're done into the pit where He already sent the Antichrist and the false prophet. They're all heading to hell, folks. And I pray there's no one here today that's following him. Because Satan has a way of convincing people they're all right with God. You know that? He does that. He's a deceiver. Well, hey, I'm as good as anybody in this church. I give money every week. I come regular. I don't care. You can stand in your garage for a week and it doesn't make you a car. You can come to church all you want, but if you never receive Christ as your Savior, you're not a Christian. That's the only thing that really matters about everything is where I stand with Jesus Christ. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. You know what? I don't want anybody sitting here, and I don't want any of our families or any of our friends to go through that tribulation period. None of them. It's horrible. Even my worst enemy, I don't want to go through that time. It's horrible. It's horrible. More horrible. Jesus says it's worse than anything man has ever seen. And if God hadn't cut it short, guess what? Everyone would have been wiped out. Everyone. My prayer is for the remnant. My prayer is for those who are alive today that have an opportunity to make a decision for Christ. Remember, it's pretty simple. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, right? Every one of us. We all sin because we're sinners. Okay, well, but God demonstrated His love toward us, and while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. You know why He had to say that? Because He went on to say, for the wages of sin is death. There's always a payday for sin. Always. Jesus paid mine in full. That's love to its ultimate. Jesus Christ is the ultimate gift. And it says, but as many received him, to them he gave the power to become the children of God. When I receive him by faith, when I trust in him and him alone for my salvation, then I become a child of God. And my destiny is sealed with him forever. Just reading through 1 John there the other day, and again, I don't even know what it's going to be like to be in heaven, but one day I'm going to be there and I'm going to see him and I'm going to be like him. And I'll see him fully. The Bible says now I got a veil in the way. I can't see him as good as I want to. Even though I see him better now than I did when I got first saved. I see him better all the time. And he's opening my eyes to himself. And really that's the goal as a Christian, right? Getting to know Christ better. If you're saved, where are you at in your walk with the Lord? Are you knowing him better? Do you walk with him and talk with him? Those kind of things. Don't let anybody fool you. Jesus Christ is the life. If you ever get to know him, you'll never be the same. I can't believe anybody would ever get to know Christ and not fall in love with him. I like to say I do wonderful every day, but I don't. And my wife's going to raise her hand and testify against me because she knows that I fall short too. I know she falls short. I know every one of us do, but I have a Savior that says, you know what? I love you. I died for you. I'm up there talking to the Lord about you, the Father about you, and he said, I'm telling Satan, get thee behind me, Satan. Get thee behind me. Wow.